Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in for this week's virtual Earth Week. My name is Julia Robson. I'm the conservation biologist with Waukesha County Parks.
My name is Janet Barthel. I am supervisor at Retzer Nature Center.
And today we are going to be taking you on a guided virtual ephemeral wildflower hike. Ephemeral wildflowers get the term ephemeral when describing them because they're only present and blooming for a very short time in spring. They've adapted to have their bloom times occur when the leaves on the trees haven't quite budded out and leafed out yet. So as you can imagine, in this maple basswood forest here, in summer when the leaves are out on the trees, not a lot of sunlight is getting to this forest floor. But early in the spring, a lot of sunlight's coming down to the forest floor. So these ephemeral wildflowers have adapted to match their bloom times when that sunlight is at its optimum. So they're blooming and getting pollinated by all of our native pollinators early in the year before the trees have leafed out. And just as you can see right now, some sunlight is dappling through on the forest floor. Wildflower that will actually grow pretty well in your yard if you have a shady spot. It's called Virginia Waterleave, named after the distinct watermarks on the basal leaves. It blooms a little bit later than the rest of the wildflowers that we're seeing today.
Second plant we found today, cutleaf toothwort. So if you take a good look in here, we talked about leaf margins the other day, but look at those jaggedy edges kind of resembling a cut leaf or sharp teeth. Look at those sweet little flowers.
Plant number 3 on our list here today is red Trillium. So one of my favorite things is when plant names, the common names, actually make sense. So Trilliums, if you look at them, they have 3 leaves, Trillium. This is the red Trillium. The other species of Trillium that we find here in the woods at Muskego Park is the large flowered white Trillium, aka deer candy, which is why we don't see too much of it, but we have plenty of the red Trillium here. So 1, 2, 3 leaves. It'll get a blood red flower that sits right on top here when it begins to bloom here in a little while.
Our next flower, one of my very favorite, bloodroot. Member of the poppy family, and it's trying to pop today, but we need more sunshine. Anyway, look at how beautiful this is. They're all curled up because it's a little cold out here right now, but when they're open, it's a Palmate Simple flower, beautiful white, lots of pollen on the anthers. But the cool part is the name totally goes with, it makes sense. If I were to break off a stem, which I'm going to actually, you see this orangey red dye. It's toxic, by the way, so don't eat it. But Native Americans were known to use this for a dye.
Right here we have one of our wildflowers that is also a wild edible. It's called wild leek. Some of you may know it as ramps. Early in the spring, the first thing you see are these lance-shaped kind of lime green leaves that are really kind of soft and waxy to the touch. They will bloom later on around June, July, and the leaves will actually disappear around the time it starts to flower. To the taste, it tastes kind of oniony, basically. A lot of people use it in salads and in soup. But an important thing to note is while this is a wild edible, it's also a protected wildflower. So the collection of wild leek or ramps in our parks is not permitted. So Janet, why are ephemeral wildflowers so important?
Well, truly we want as much bloom time extended through the season as much as possible. So because nothing else is really blooming right now, when spring ephemerals pop up, as the native bees come out of the soil or the pollinators start to appear, these are the first sources for nectar and pollen, and so they're key to keeping pollinators successful.
Yet another spring wildflower that you may actually find growing in your yard. It's growing right next to this bloodroot right here. This is called Spring Beauty. Dainty, tiny, whitish pink flowers. Inside the flower, you can see it looks almost like, let's see if I can get to focus, There we go. They kind of look like runways, guiding pollinators right to the sweet nectar that helps aid in pollination. So here we've got the leaves of the spring beauty, 2 leaves around the stem, just like that. The flowers come up from the center. This will grow in shady parts of your yard, and if you hold off on early spring mowing, you'll actually see them blooming.
Next plant, one of my favorite, hepatica. Its another name is liver leaf. So think hepatica, it's the word for liver. So called that way because the leaf itself resembles the 3 lobes of the liver. Sweet little flower, kind of drooping down with the cold, but very pretty. You'll actually see these green all winter long, maybe a little purpley, but they are a little evergreen that you'll see popping through the forest floor with the snow.
Gee, Janet, it sure would be nice to have an umbrella on this rainy day.
I just so happen to have one for you. So it's not quite open yet, but this is the awesome May apple that's poking up through the forest floor. It'll be a beautiful umbrella, like Julia had mentioned, soon, and a sweet little edible little apple will come later in the season.
I am so excited because I just found my favorite spring wildflower. It's called Dutchman's breeches. Interesting name, right? It's actually in the poppy family as well, just like bloodroot is, but it got its name after its flower. The flowers are attached to what kind of it's a naked stem that it looks like pants hanging off the clothesline, because the flowers do. They look like little pantalones, inverted, upside down basically. But it's 4 petals total, the 2 tube-like pink ones, and then the little yellow ones here on the bottom. Excuse my fingers, I need a manicure, obviously. But the leaves are very much fern-like. It's not a fern, but they're fern-like in appearance, very feathered. They are pollinated by early bumblebees, particularly the early queen bumblebees that come out. Our native bumblebees actually have a tongue that's long enough to get up into the flower to get at the pollen and actually effectively pollinate the plant. Non-native honeybees, they're unable to do that. So this plant requires our native queen bumblebees in the spring to pollinate it. The leaves are toxic to mammals, but it is a beautiful plant. You'll only find it in rich woodlands. So it occurs in woods that have never been plowed and they've never been bulldozed, just like the park we're in here. Beautiful. So here are the trifecta of field guides when it comes to wildflower identification. Great for beginners, Wildflowers of Wisconsin. And then we also have, as you're working your way up, the Peterson's Guide to Wildflowers and the Wildflowers of Wisconsin and the Great Lakes region. Pit stop for some invasive species control. Bye-bye garlic mustard.